Okay. Want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. Thank you for not thinking it robbery to take time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. We are continuing in our study of the book of John. Tonight it's going to be John chapter 18. This chapter really it talks about Jesus' arrest, but there's some things in John that in the other Gospels is not as detailed in John. Again, John speaks more of his of Jesus' deity. So that is what we when we talk about in the book of John, we just look at his deity. Okay. Like us on YouTube at Pastor Jeffrey Goodine. Subscribe, hit the bell to be notified. They say if you get so many likes or so many subscriptions that they'll do something. Well, whatever it is, let's do it. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on our Facebook group page, Church on Wheels. Let the good news roll. Facebook Live, Jeffrey Goodine. X, which is formerly Twitter, at Goodine Jeffrey. Instagram, Goodine Jeffrey. Clubhouse, Church on Wheels Ministry. And we've also added TikTok, which is Jeffrey Goodine, and YouTube Live, which is Pastor Jeffrey Goodine. I ask you to send me an email at pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. I'll add you to the list and you will get a copy of the handout so that you can follow along with us in Bible study. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. Add you to the list and you will get a copy of the handout so that you can follow along with us in Bible study. Tonight, arrested and tried. Now, when you're following the story of Jesus, around Easter time, you know that he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was praying and there and in the other Gospels they give a little bit more detail than John. So it's like it's already understood as to what was happening or what was going to happen. Our focus tonight is on John chapter 18, verse 11. And that's going to be our focus for tonight. In that, and he said, but Jesus said to Peter, put your sword back into its sheath. Shall I not drink from the cup of suffering the Father has given me? Now, there's some things that are happening here, and we need to understand that everything that's happening is the prophecy of what has been foretold. So then, now comes the major question. Was Judas Iscariot really a betrayer, or was that part of the prophecy? See, because we might look at Judas Iscariot as being the bad guy, but Jesus already knew that, he already knew what was going to happen. And so, and the Bible said that it was for the fulfilling of Scripture, or fulfilling of the prophecy. So if that was fulfilling of the prophecy, then Judas Iscariot was part of the prophecy. And the woman that put the anointed his head with oil, that's part of the prophecy. him coming in to Jerusalem on a donkey. Part of the prophecy. So you see in this chapter, John is saying really that Jesus had accepted what was happening. That he didn't lay down there, nobody came to get him. You know, he kind of already knew what was happening. That's why they couldn't get him, because it wasn't his time. See, everything happens in a time. There's a time. There's a time to do certain things. There's a time. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 lets you know that there's a time for everything. And it's not in our time. It's in God's time. See, our time, we could be too early or too late. And we've already been, now we've all been there before, that we've gone somewhere and we got there too early. And then we've gone somewhere and we got there too late. But with God, everything is right on time. So Jesus knew it was his time. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. And in the handout, number 1, John 18 tells the story of Jesus' arrest. Keep in mind that John was writing his gospel decades after the other 3 were written. The events in the garden and the trials that followed already have been covered in detail by Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So if you go back and read Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you'll see that this garden scene, in the Garden of Gethsemane, you will see a little more detail than in John. John just kind of puts, a couple sentences to it, and and that's about it. Those details were well known in John's day. That may explain why John doesn't offer as many specifics in his account. Same thing, he just didn't. You know what? Think about it. If you got somebody telling, what did he say? 3 people watch the same thing, you would have 3 different stories. And all of them are what we would call eyewitnesses to this thing. And you would get 3 different stories. Some a little bit more detailed than others, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So, and we look in John chapter 18, starting verse 1. And I'm reading from the King James Version tonight. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth. Now remember last Bible study, that was his final prayer. That was the prayer where he prayed for the people. He prayed for himself. He prayed for his disciples. And then he prayed for the church, for the believers. That's what happened in chapter 17. He knew he was leaving, and so he prayed for them. There's 3 different subjects of prayer. Prayer for himself, prayer for the disciple, and then prayer for the believers. So evidently he prayed for you and I. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where was a garden, into which he entered, and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place. But Jesus oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas, then having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Now, think of it this way. Was Judas Iscariot a betrayer? Or was he just fulfilling prophecy? Come on. I mean, I understand, we all on Judas Iscariot, the betrayer and all of that. but that was part of the prophecy. So do we really view him as a betrayer, or do we view him as part of the prophecy? Now, when they come with the army, in verse 4, in verse 3, when Judas brought the band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, they came with lanterns, torches, weapons. They came to get him. They came to get him. But now that leaves a fact. The fact that Jesus' enemies brought armed soldiers to arrest him showed that despite their years of plotting against him, they still didn't understand him. He refused every effort to make him king. He had no political aspirations. He never encouraged rebellion among his followers. He was not a fugitive. Now, think of it this way. Now, we've been reading all through John that they have been trying to kill Jesus for healing on the Sabbath. You know, everything about the Sabbath. They had every opportunity, but they didn't. They couldn't. Because that wasn't they were not part of the prophecy.
Well, they would have had to have stoned him.
Right.
And he had to go up on the cross.
Right.
The Romans.
Right. They had everything ready. The religious leaders had everything ready, but they were mad at Jesus because they said Jesus is causing trouble for us. That as long as he's causing trouble for us, then the Roman government gonna come down on our ability to I don't know, can we say cheat the people? No, let's not say it. Our worship or our thing. Not, you couldn't say cheating the people, you know, but you couldn't say that, but that's what they were doing. But they had every opportunity and they didn't. If you look at verse 2, 2 on the handout, he frequently taught in the temple where the religious leaders spent most of their time. They could have arrested him without incident anytime they wanted. They had every opportunity. But think about it. God wouldn't allow it. Theoretically, of course, the reality is that they couldn't have arrested him outside of God's timetable. Not until Jesus' time had come. Which it had, and it happened in the garden. If anyone was prone to violence, it was the religious leaders, who several times picked up rocks to stone Jesus because they refused to believe the truth of his word. Now think about it. They were picking up rocks to stone him, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. You know how it is sometimes we try to get back at somebody, and we say we had the opportunity, but we just couldn't do it. And then later on, we see that they get their comeuppance. It's because that wasn't the time. So, even though they had multiple opportunities, that wasn't Jesus' time. But now in the garden, his time has come. Again, I want to put that in your mind. I want to think about this. Was Judas Iscariot really a betrayer? Or was he just fulfilling prophecy? You know, think about it. Now, I'm not here to throw no shade on whatever. I'm just saying, if the prophecy that Jesus fulfilled, especially here in the garden,
he was fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Jesus knew it was his time. He didn't run. He didn't run. He knew it was his time. He knew it was his time. So, in verse 4, said, Jesus therefore, knowing all the things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backwards and fell to the ground. Now, that is a very important piece. They knew who he was. They were showing reverence to him. It probably took them by surprise that it is him. And they fell to the ground. Said, then asked he them again, whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore ye seek me, let these go their way. Now, that Jesus said that you seeking me, let them go. Leave them alone. You come to get me. Again, and verse 9 said, that the same might be fulfilled which he spake, of them which thou gavest me, have I lost none. He said, let them go. You want me? Let them go. Now, if you think about it, Jesus is accepting what is going to happen. He already knows. He already knows. Then, in verse 10, said, then Simon Peter, having his sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Jesus unto Peter, put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Now, that lets you know that Jesus said, my Father has given this to me. This is a cup, and I'm going to drink it. I'm going to accept what he gives me. He's giving me this. This is the prophecy. The prophecy is being fulfilled. I'm not going to go against it. So I already know. You all might not know, but I know. And he's telling them, you come to get me, let them go. That you didn't come to get them, you came to get me. And so when we think about Jesus being arrested and tried, that was all in prophecy. That was all in prophecy. That he would be betrayed for, a few pieces of silver and gold, whatever it is, the amount of money.
30 pieces.
Yeah, 30 pieces. So, this was all prophecy. But that's why Jesus was telling them that I'm leaving you. But as long as you stay connected to me, you're the branch, you stay connected to the vine, you'll be okay. Didn't say heartaches and trouble won't come. He just said stay connected to me and you'll be all right. And then he has a prayer for them. Prayer for himself. That he's praying to God that he is worthy of what is getting ready to happen. He's worthy. Then he prayed about the disciples, that God protect them. Please protect them. Because they really don't know what's getting ready to happen to them. And then he prayed for the believers. He prayed for the church folk. And I'm just paraphrasing, that their spirit won't, that they won't give up, that they continue. He's praying for that. Now, I can tell you this, if you got Jesus praying for you, man, you're on the right train. You're on the right train. if you got Jesus praying for you, you know that prayer is going to get answered. I don't know about yours, but I know one prayer. That prayer is going to get answered. Now, when you think about it, Jesus told Peter, put up your sword. What's happening now is supposed to happen. That's why I say sometimes when you riding down the road and you say, well, you know, you want to go right, but something tell you to go left. You go left, and there's somebody down there waiting on you. Think about it. Philip leaving worship. The angel came to him and said, I need you to go down through the desert. I know Philip said, I don't usually go that way. He said, but you need to go down through the desert. And so he was obedient, and he went down there, and there was the Ethiopian on the chariot. God sent him down there to explain to him what he was reading and to baptize him. So you see, a lot of our actions that seem strange, out of ordinary, those things are supposed to happen. Those things are supposed to happen if you follow. So, if you think about it, Jesus said, the cup which my Father had given me, shall I not drink it? Whatever is in that cup, the Father gave it. Whatever is in that cup, the Father gave it. And Jesus said, I'm going to drink it. I'm going to drink it. So put up your sword. We're not fighting. I'm not fighting to get out of this, because I know that is my time. They don't know that. See, they don't know that. They think they're doing something. That's why I say, again, when you read and you get to Judas Iscariot, you must think about it for a minute. Was he really a betrayer, or was he just fulfilling prophecy? Was he fulfilling prophecy? I don't know. Think about it. Now, back to the chart, back to the handout. It may not have appeared that way in the confusion of the moment, but Jesus was in control of the situation. As his enemies approached, he stepped forward to identify himself so that none of the disciples would be harmed. He said, let them go. Let them go. But then, you know, we always got to be extra. That should have been the end of it. And in my studies, I read this, and I was like, oh yeah, kind of right. Peter failed to read the room. He didn't pay attention to Jesus. Where Jesus had asked, let them go. Leave them alone. Y'all here for me. Y'all are here for me. Let them go. But Peter, you know, the hothead he was, he boldly drew his sword to save Jesus. Now think about this. He drew the sword to save Jesus. Now there's a whole army of people, and he the only one drew his sword, like he ain't gonna kill everybody. You know, it is what it is, y'all. And cut off the right ear of an unarmed servant. And we put a slave here because that was one of the high priest's servants. And usually the servants were slaves. So I put that in there. Jesus told Peter to put away his sword, reminding him that what was happening was God's plan. What was happening was God's plan. When he's telling, put up that sword, the cup of which my Father has given me, shall I not drink it? That's God's plan. All this is God's plan. You just kind of getting in the way. But you think about it. Jesus knew it was his time. He knew it was his time. But nobody else knew it. See, when it's your time, you know it's your time, and nobody else needs to know about it. In fact, they don't even know. It was your time. But your time is on God's time. God's time is not our time is God's time. God's time is not our time. You know why? It's because we'll show up late and we'll show up early. Now I know one thing gonna happen you ain't gonna be late for or early for. That is death. I can guarantee you that. You won't be early for that, and you surely won't be late. I can, you know, can I say 100% guarantee that? I think I can say 100% guarantee that. You will not be early for that, and you surely will not be late. Oh, I got something to tell y'all. I saw it. I was on and I was reading this behind this guy was talking. And you know, I kind of listen to what people are saying. And he said, I want you to watch this and tell me what you see. And so he put the clip. And the clip was, there was some kind of bad accident or something, and they had the medic helicopter. And the medic helicopter was taking off. And all of a sudden, you saw something shoot out the top of it. And I didn't really pay it no mind until I watched it again. And I read the caption. The caption said this was a medic helicopter, and they were airlifting this man to the hospital. But when he got to the hospital, they said he died. He died on the helicopter. Well, soon as the helicopter was picking up, this time I looked really close. Because it had an arrow pointing. And I'm like, what am I pointing to? But after I looked at it, as the helicopter was rising up, you saw something shoosh right out the top of the helicopter. Wasn't no smoke. And I think they caught it on the camera. And I said, that was his spirit. He died soon as God took him. Soon as that helicopter was going up. And I had to sit and watch that thing about 4 or 5 times. And every time it got clearer and clearer. As soon as it was lifting up, you saw this something, spirit, I would call it a spirit, shoot up out the helicopter. Just like his life. His soul shot up out of the helicopter. And I was like, and that took me back to thinking. I mean, I'm on a tangent on it. That took me back to thinking. Where the scientists was trying to figure out when death occurred. And he had weights and things connected up to the body. And while the body was there and it was dying, a weight dropped, like the body got lighter. A weight dropped, and he was dead. No more responses in the body, nothing. So he was trying to prove that we all have a spirit that has a little weight in us, and when we die, that spirit leaves. You know, I mean, I didn't understand it back then. I just was like, okay, this guy's kind of out of his mind. He's a little, I ain't inviting him to the cookout because he's kind of way out there. But then when I saw this, that brought me back to that. Yes, something left him. And you could see it shoot, I mean, like a bottle rocket. Shoo! Right up out of the helicopter. Right out the middle of the top of the helicopter, through the blades and everything, right up through it. So, anyway.
Back to the story.
Back to the story. Back to the story. Jesus knew that it was his time. But nobody else knew it. See, nobody else knew it was his time. They just looked at it as being the human thing. That Judas Iscariot would betrayed him. That, they came to get him in the garden. Peter cutting off the ear. Jesus knew it was his time. Jesus knew it was his time. Now, number 3, I want you to think about number 3. And here, in Matthew's version of the story, Jesus said, "Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly?" In Matthew chapter 26, verse 53. He said, "Don't you think if I called my Father to send angels, that he would send them down here?" That's not in Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew. So if Jesus tell you, don't you throw, if I wanted to get out of this, all I do is call the Father, and he would send the angels to protect me, all of this would be over with. Jesus allowed himself to be arrested because he set in motion the events that would lead to what? Salvation. Hold it. Didn't Isaiah say salvation was coming? Riding on a donkey? Didn't Isaiah say that? That salvation is coming? Riding on a donkey? Well, all that was prophesied. And so now Jesus is fulfilling the prophecy on God's time. On God's time. So Jesus knew what was about to happen. Now, on the back, here's another point of reference. There was nothing just about Jesus' trial. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. The high priest Caiaphas had already decided that Jesus needed to die for the people. That is so the Roman government wouldn't crack down on Jewish religious practices. That's what we talked about back in John chapter 11. Where they said, we got to get rid of this man. Because if we don't, then he's going to cause the Roman people, the Roman government to crack down on us. So we got to get rid of him. So you see, they had the chance back then, but they couldn't. Why? It's because it wasn't Jesus' time. It wasn't time. It wasn't time.
And if they stoned him, it wouldn't.
Right. I mean, think about it. If they threw the stone at him, nothing would happen. Oh, that really would have tripped him out then. That really would have tripped him out then. If they was throwing stones at him and he didn't die, then maybe that would have made believers out of him. Maybe. I don't know.
But the fact that they wanted the Romans to kill him, it took the weight off of them.
Right.
For sending them to the.
Yes, for sending them to Rome. Yeah, to
the Romans do it, and then we're free.
We're free and clear. Right. We're free and clear. We're free and clear. Verse 15. Verse 12. Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him and led him away to Annas first. For he was the father-in-law to Caiaphas. Now, some of them say that this is spelled a different way in other texts. Some will say Ananias. Yeah. Ananias. But he went away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law to Caiaphas, which was the high priest that same year. So now they went from here.
But Ananias was high priest previous.
Right.
And he still had a lot of power.
Yes, and he had the power. So you had gone from judgment hall to judgment hall, as they say. From judgment hall to judgment hall. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one should die for the people. Caiaphas was the one that said one person should die for the people. Because if they don't, then the Roman government will come down on us. And man, we really don't want that to happen. But this Jesus guy, he just always showing up. He's just always there in the middle of something. And we just can't seem to get rid of him, but now we got it. Well, they think they got it. They think they got it. But Jesus, they didn't arrest him. He surrendered, in other words. But his whole thing was, let them go. Don't bother them. It is me you want. It is I you want. Come, take me, and let them go. Well, and let's say the rest is history. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. Now, there's some questions. Yeah, discrepancies about this. Some say that John was the disciple who accompanied Peter to the high priest's residence where Jesus was being tried. Since John knew the high priest, he was able to get past the gate and into the courtyard. So, but John didn't say it was him. Verse 15 says, and Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. So, in some circles, they say that John knew the high priest, and therefore he was able to go into the palace. But John says, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door without. Then went out that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spake unto her that kept the door, and brought him in. So some say that was John. John said it was another disciple. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of digging, because that would kind of get away from the point. But any of you that out there, can you substantiate whether or not that another disciple that John is talking about was really him, since he didn't make any reference to himself? But other writers and manuscripts have John knowing the high priest at this time, and when they're talking about that disciple, then a lot of them are attributing that to John being able to go in and to talk for Peter at the door. 4. John was the disciple who accompanied Peter to the high priest's residence where Jesus was being tried. Since John knew the high priest, he was able to get past the gate and into the courtyard. Then he had to convince the woman watching the gate to let Peter in too. The woman asked Peter, "You're not one of that man's disciples, are you?" And here we start down the slippery slope. "No," he said, "I am not." You see that in verse 17. But 16. But Peter stood at the door without. Then went out that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spake unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. So now Peter is in the courtyard. That's how he gets there. Well, wait a minute. Didn't Jesus tell Peter that you're going to deny me 3 times? Mm-hmm. So in order for that to happen, he had to be where? Inside of the courtyard. Because if he was outside of the gate, he'd have been gone. So he had to be inside. So again, is this prophecy? Or did that other disciple just say, hey, he with me? You know, I'm just saying. Verse 17, then saith the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, art not thou also one of this man's disciples? He said, I am not. And the servants and officers stood there, who had made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves, and Peter stood with them and warmed himself. Now, that's how Peter gets in there. Now, let's go look at the damsel at the gate. Was that prophecy for him to get in the gate? Or was he just lucky? Because I can tell you this. He surely would not have denied Jesus 3 times standing outside the door, sitting on the other side. He wouldn't have been asked those questions or that question if he was still outside the gate. Where Jesus had already said that he was going to deny him 3 times. So again, is this just happenstance? Is this prophecy? He had to be in there for them to notice that he had a speech like him. In the other gospel, they say, you surely are one of those because you got the voice. You got the accent. So, for that to happen, he had to be inside so that those people could ask him. Because outside the gate, wasn't be nobody asking him nothing out there. So it had to be in there. Here inside the courtyard, Peter warmed himself by a fire. Twice more, he was asked if he was Jesus' disciples. Twice more, he said no. This was the total of 3 denials, just as Jesus had predicted hours earlier. Well, we're back to prophecy or happenstance. Jesus already predicted what he was going to do, so Peter had to be in a position to get asked those questions. So the woman let him in, was that because she knew that other disciple really good?
Probably.
You know? He had to be. So everything is in motion. Salvation is coming. Everything is in motion. And there's nothing they could do about it. Now verse 19, and I want to look at the verse 19. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort. And in secret have I said nothing. He's put it all out there. Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. He said, go ask the people. Go ask the people. And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, answerest thou the high priest so? Jesus answered him, if I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? He said, I'm speaking the truth.
God didn't have a right to smack him in the
right.
first place because of the Jewish law.
Right. So now Ananias has sent him bound into Caiaphas the high priest. Now he goes into the high priest. And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. Then said therefore unto him, Art not thou also one of his disciples? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, being his kinsman, whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did not I see thee in the garden with him? Peter then denied again, and immediately the cock crew. Prophecy. Prophecy. So Jesus really, we could say he was arrested and tried, but that was all prophecy. They really didn't do anything. They were just fulfilling prophecy. So again, I ask the question: was Judas Iscariot really a betrayer, or was he fulfilling prophecy?
Fulfilling prophecy.
You know. You know, I mean,
because
okay.
We've been watching some videos on that time period.
Mm-hmm.
On what happened after he threw the coins back to the priests and everything. He went and hung himself. Well, he hung himself basically in front of Caiaphas' family crypt,
Mm-hmm.
which faced the the synagogue, the
temple,
the
high priest temple.
The high priest temple.
Uh-huh.
What that does is puts shame on Caiaphas, because they've got somebody hanging themselves in front of their family, between them and the temple.
Okay. Okay.
So it's, my point of view is, yeah, it was prophecy, and after he did it and saw what happened,